Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Phil Brown. It's Sunday, the 4th of November. We continue our fight to save the key core and essential services at South Tyneside Hospital. We are just over 6 weeks to go now before we will have our time down in Leeds on the 18th, 19th and 20th with the judge of December in order to fight our corner with Irwin Mitchell solicitors to say that the plans of South Tyneside Trust are irrational. That's a word chosen by Mr. Yogi Ali from Irwin Mitchell, given the fact that the Trust from the very first level of consultation didn't really heed the concerns of the campaign group, certainly with regards to the practicalities of what is being discussed. And, we've had other assurances from lead people saying, urgent and emergency care will not be affected. This was said 2 years ago by one lead person, and we'll hold that person to those words. So maybe I'm being a bit over anxious. Maybe I've lost something here. Maybe it's a case that really the urgent and emergency care isn't going to be up for reconfiguration. Certainly in the 2 years since the person made that claim, things seem to have moved forward. And as regards the Shields Gazette last week, putting a post out from the Trust saying, well, nothing is off the table. The opposite applies. Nothing's on the table. There's this glib suggestion of 31 permutations for emergency care. 3 would have done. I mean, in the best nature of triage in emergency care, you've got your P1, P2, P3 in terms of triage for the level of care that people require. It would have been far more sophisticated to have sat down and thought, can we triage the triage? What's our best option? What's the most acute scenario? What's the other one towards the middle, and what's the one that gives less concern but is the best fit? What's wrong with that? Instead of that, we've got this kind of throwaway line of 31 potential options for emergency care. I'm afraid it really doesn't bode well in a country where a premier can't get her act together with regards to Europe and what's going wrong there, and then devolve down the line the threat to food security, to medicines, to hospitals where 222 trusts are being told they may have to go it alone if we crash out of Brexit. And all the time, Mrs. May washing her hands and saying, oh, well, it's devolved, to the lowest common denominator. It's back to the trusts. And it could just all collapse. Now, you might think I'm scaremongering. I'm not. I'll leave that to the trust and all the rhetoric they bring out in their documents, such as Stronger Together. And the chief executive, Mr. Bremner, talking about a tsunami of financial issues. It just doesn't add up. On the one hand, he's talking about, reassurance and we'll get the work-life balance right for the staff, i.e. the nurses. Well, if the situation arises where they've got to go to Sunderland, you can forget about work-life balance. It's bad enough now going to South Tyneside Hospital, trying to find a parking space, paying parking charges. We'll look back in less than 4 years from now and people will put their heads to their hands and think, how the devil did we put up with this for so long, where NHS staff, nurses, porters, domestic staff were fleeced to subsidise a service while at the top of the chain, the government allowed their friends to get off with tax avoidance. We will have our head in our hands and say, we've got to change now and every penny's accounted for and people pay decent taxes for the profits they make. And they'll cry in their cups and say, why did we ever allow this trust to take so much back in parking fees? It's wrong. However, we continue to fight. We will be going to Leeds or possibly Newcastle in just over 6 weeks to fight for the key core and essential and urgent services. So when people said 2 years ago, the issue with regards to urgent and emergency care is that, they'll more or less be guaranteed. Well, the stroke team and the heart team's part of acute and emergency care, and they've certainly gone the journey. There are people pronouncing on the NHS with respect, and we've seen it already with the Steve Davis marketing company, Steve Davis Marketing. They're only sloganising, haven't got a clue about the NHS. We'll put an advert in the Shields Gazette on the 5th of July. Some of us rolled our sleeves up and had a damn good celebration of the skills and the future of our local NHS. We don't sloganise, we campaign long and hard. We will fight, we will save the hospital in one form or another. And we will ensure that the incoming Labour government, because they're committed to it, certainly nationally they are, that they will fight to renationalise the NHS. But that's at the top of the Labour Party. So we continue our fight at grassroots level to say we will fight to keep the key core and essential services at South Tyneside Hospital. Have a really good Sunday and I'll catch you tomorrow.